In the early hours of June 6, 1944, 200,000 men are poised and ready to embark in the largest amphibious assault in human history with the intent of liberating Europe and stopping the Nazi regime. Anytime you discuss American military endeavors, it's inevitable that you talk about World War II and its successes, specifically D-Day. Without D-Day, it is most likely that the US and Allied forces would have never defeated the Nazis in Europe and liberated all of their conquered countries. My name is Nathan Gish, and I've been an avid history buff my entire life. I spent time reading books, articles, and documents, and watching a plethora of documentaries and interviews. In the case of D-Day, I've traveled to Normandy twice in my life, and one of the times I had a private tour with a West Point military historian. So that was a really, really good experience. So to begin, I'd like to give some background knowledge on the timeline of where we're at in the war. The war has been going on for 5 years, and Germany has controlled the majority of Europe, including the entire west coast from Spain to Norway. Now, the German army has created a massive fortification across this coastline, and it's coined as the Atlantic Wall. It is said to be impenetrable at the time to the Germans and the Allied forces, but the only way for the Allied forces to make any ground on the Germans is to invade and push them out of Europe by liberating cities. The Supreme Commander of the Allied forces, Dwight D. Eisenhower, was tasked with the planning and execution of Operation Overlord. With the help of the British Commonwealth, they devised a plan to do a beachhead landing at Normandy Beach. The landing was going to be preceded by an extreme bombing campaign and a paratrooping campaign to go behind enemy lines and capture strategic cities and bridges. The beach landings would be 5 separate places called Omaha Beach, Utah, Juneau, Sword, and Gold. And the main purpose of the invasion was to create a two-front dilemma on the Germans, one in the west predicated by the US forces and Commonwealth forces, and one on the eastern front by the Russians. The landing sites were selected based on their ability to be surprising the Germans, their suitability for landing crafts, and also their access to deep water ports. In order to get the correct landing sites, the Allied forces had to create an elaborate deception plan to move German forces and armor away from the Normandy beaches to a city called Calais. In addition, the Allies also had to stockpile a massive amount of weapons and equipment and men. According to Stephen Ambrose's book D-Day, 160,000 men partook in the invasion and 70,000 vehicles, equipment, and aircraft also. So, as the invasion begins, the Germans were fooled. Unfortunately, some weather complications actually moved the date back. It was originally planned on June 5th, but it was moved back to June 6th because of weather complications. So, that evening, when the aerial campaign and paratrooping campaign ensued, they were very scattered and unorganized, and the bombing campaign was also not very effective. The next morning, there was also a weather condition of extreme fog over the beach, which caused inaccurate and ineffective barrages of the beach to soften up defenses. Additionally, it was also delayed by 3 hours, causing the beach to change from low tide to high tide, and covering up all of the German vehicle defenses on the beach. The US landed on Omaha Beach and Utah Beach, and the Commonwealth forces landed on Juneau, Sword, and Gold. Now, the Germans were taken by surprise at almost all the beaches except for Omaha. Omaha was extremely bloody and challenging due to rough terrain and also German reinforcements. The Timeline D-Day documentary states that 2,500 US soldiers were killed that day alone. Fortunately, all of the beaches were secured on June 6th. Once the Allies had secured all the beachheads, they were ready to move inland with their superior military force and supplies. They had a major challenge in the countryside of France against the Germans because of a natural barrier called hedgerows, which were century-old entrenchments of trees and bushes used by farmers. So it provided excellent strategic protection for the Germans. Now, just a few months later, the Allies were able to break the German hold in Europe and push them back into Germany, ultimately leading towards the death blow of the German army. And all in all, D-Day was probably one of the most important events in modern history for the simple fact of it made such an impact on World War II. And had it not happened, the course of the war probably would have gone in the wrong direction. It is my hope that with this information you can see that the American sacrifice and the work that was taken into account to complete this incredible task to defeat the horrible regime of the Nazis was nothing easy, and it only could be completed by, of course, brave men who were willing to sacrifice everything they could for freedom. So I hope this information shows some historical context, but also provides a sense of respect and memory of the people that were willing to die and sacrifice themselves to stop the Nazi advancement. So, thank you.